All right.
Hey, my name is D. Grant Smith. That is a really weird name. If you only get the D, you've done very well. This is an infographics class, right? Okay, so that means you guys think in pictures, correct? Do you translate emotions into pictures? Is that kind of part of what it is that you do so that you can translate your emotions and then convey that over to somebody else to get them to take action? All right, well, what I want to do here with you guys today is a combination of get into your mind just a little bit, but mostly get into your heart a little bit and challenge you to think about things in maybe a way that you hadn't thought of before. How many of you guys have struggled in any way, shape, or form over the course of your life, which would be roughly 21 years maybe? Okay. With insecurity? Okay. No insecurity for you? Awesome. Self-doubt? Worry? Okay. Any sort of like feelings that maybe you're not good enough? All right, where do those come from?
The devil.
Yes. Where else do they come from? I think they come from sometimes our relationships, because we often want somebody else to tell us who it is that we are so that maybe we can believe that story. So the idea that there is a narrative that your life is based around partially comes from this belief that somebody else is going to write what that story is. Oh, excellent. Very well done. You get an A for today, Ryan. But here's the thing. Oftentimes, this is something I've discovered, and I want to kind of share with you my story and maybe hopefully inspire you in the pursuit of your story and the pursuit of your narrative, is that this belief that somebody else has to determine your value in order for you to believe what it is and in order for you to fight for yourself. And I want to tell you right now that you are worth fighting for, but that's a decision that you have to make for yourself. And until you make that for yourself, nothing's ever going to change in the way that you want it to have the life and the fulfillment of what it is that you seek. So, as you can tell, I'm a 37-year-old man. You might not have been able to tell that, but I am a short guy, especially compared to Little John here, which is my nickname for Ryan. Doesn't he look like Little John from Robin Hood? Anyhow, sorry man, didn't mean to embarrass you. So I'm a short, skinny dude. As an adult, imagine what I was like as a teenager, or as a person that was you guys' age, roughly 21-something years old, when I was here at ACU. And actually, I was on the other side of this building in the radio department at KACU. So I used to come in actually through the back door down here when I lived in Edwards, and would see all of the new graphic design projects that all of you guys students, not you guys, y'all were in like elementary school or probably not even born yet, who knows. But yeah, do the math, it's okay.
Are you looking at a Little John picture or something?
Oh my God.
I love that your head's in the game, that's really awesome. So,
I'm going to need this talk more than everyone else. I thought it was supposed to work the other way
You're
around.
having trouble with your self-reflection.
I aim to please everybody, man. Everybody.
At least there.
If anything, you got a little bit of entertainment for a Tuesday, which, you know, to help you get through the rest of the week, that's what you want. So, when I was 27 years old, I was standing on a street corner in downtown Abilene, and one of the fears I've had my whole life is that whole thing about being unworthy and being not good enough, and I carried that with me from my adolescence being like, this was 13, maybe, 13, I don't know. Maybe at like 20, it was maybe here. Yeah, who knows? So, but I carried this insecurity and this fear with me, and I've always been really good at building relationships with people, but I felt that those relationships validated who I was, and that without them, I didn't have anything to really aspire to, and essentially without having good friends, then I wasn't really worth investing in. And even though I had really good friends and I was really good with people, I still questioned myself every step along the way. And one of my biggest fears was the fear that every guy or girl, I think, that has been bullied struggles with, and that's the fear of being hurt in some sort of physical way. And so I was standing on a street corner in downtown Abilene, and across the street from me, I just need to go across the street and like half a block to the left, and I was going to go meet my friend at his office. And the trip was easy. It's middle of the afternoon, there's cars coming by, but I see this guy on the other side of the road, and I made a snap judgment in a moment. This guy looked kind of rough. I mean, he looked like he was, you know, a member of maybe Bone Thugs and Harmony or something, and I thought, okay, this guy's going to jump me, because that's, you know, and I judged him. It was totally wrong for me to do that, but I made this judgment that this person was going to harm me in some way, and that I was going to be victimized, and I had nobody to defend me, but I'm a grown man who still felt that fear. And so instead of crossing the street like a normal human being would, or like a mature person would, or a confident person would, or a regular person would, I turned 90 degrees and I took an extra 3.5 blocks. Now, somewhere in my second block, as I'm justifying this to myself, saying, oh, this is extra exercise, and I could use the exercise, because that's, you know, that's good, that's healthy. This little voice popped in my head and said, dude, how long are you going to do this? You're a grown man who can't cross the street. You really going to live this way for the rest of your life? Well, after I did my thing, as I was on my way home, I passed by a sign, and that sign gave me the inclination to take a proactive step to correcting this problem and learning to do something that I thought would be the solution, which was learn how to box. So I joined Abilene Boxing Club. Coach Rivas was an Air Force boxing coach who showed us on the first day that he meant business, and that if you didn't do things his way, you could get out. Now, I have always respected very stern, direct and forceful leaders, especially men. They reminded me of a combination of my father and Lee Ermey from Full Metal Jacket. There's two guys in here, I doubt that, no offense, this isn't a sexist comment, I just doubt that the girls in here have seen a movie about the Vietnam War and the training camp that went along with it, but he was a drill sergeant and he said something. Okay, good, one of you. Anyhow, Coach was a little bit of a combination of that guy and some other people that I knew. Anyhow, he trained us to learn how to compete in amateur boxing. Now, I just wanted to learn how to not get beat up. I didn't want to learn how to actually get into a ring and fight anybody, because that still scared me. Even though that's what I was there to do, sort of. I worked out really hard, got in really good shape. I got paired up with this guy who was actually half my age and about my exact height and weight, and his name was Rudy. I love Rudy. Rudy he was a kid, but he hit like a man. Anyhow, we were waiting in line to spar. Finally got to the place where I guess that's what Coach thought I was ready for. And so all of us had to put on gear. We had to wear special gloves, we had to wear special shoes, we had to have mouthpieces and other stuff. And so, but we had to wait in line, we had to get matched up with people. So I'm waiting in line, and suddenly I'm back on the street corner in my mind. Because now is where the rubber meets the road, and now is where it's like, okay, dude, if you're gonna quit, you better quit now, because you're 6.5 feet away from getting in the ring with that kid that you've already felt what his punches felt like when you were hitting bags, but now there are going to be no bags to shield you from his fists, and you better be ready for it. So if you're going to bail out, now's the time to bail out. And so this little inner dialogue is going on in my mind. And I realized that I could run if I wanted to, meaning I could walk away, but that would mean I could never go back. Because that was part of the stipulation. If you're going to quit, there is no turning back. And I didn't work my off in the gym every single day from 6 o'clock to 8:30. And I was the old guy there at the time. I was 27. Against these young 20s and high school kids and a couple middle school guys. But I didn't work my butt off and work harder than they did every single day to walk away when it actually mattered. So, I stepped in the ring, I fought Rudy. Rudy, sure enough, hit really hard, and for the first minute and a half, I couldn't touch him because he knew how to move. He had an amateur record. He was like 10-6, which is a winning record either way you slice it. Anyhow, finally I got clocked enough where like I just stopped caring about whether or not he punched me, and I just went after him, and then coach had to break us up and we were good. But I learned a lot from that experience, and it helped me show myself what I was made of, and that there was something in here that was actually worth fighting for. Fast forward in time about 10 years. I've been married for almost a decade. I was happily, beautifully, magically in love with this girl that I was sure was the one, and we had a great relationship. So I thought, I went to bed one night, I woke up the next morning, and she said, I don't know how to tell you this, but I don't love you, and I want to leave. And that just, I can't tell you what that did inside of here, but suddenly all of those feelings of not being good enough, not having what it takes, not being worthy, all that stuff that I carried with me from childhood and thought that I had gotten rid of because now this person said I do, and since she said I do, that must make me good enough. I didn't exactly believe that all the way. I was starting to come around to that idea, but now here is this reality, and my whole life doesn't matter anymore. And to be incredibly bluntly honest with you guys, I've got a gun in my sock drawer that's supposed to be for protection from violent crime. I live in Clyde, we don't really experience that. But in that moment, I thought, I have nothing to live for if this person doesn't want to be with me. Why am I still sitting here? I should just go be another body they fish out of Fort Phantom. Now, also in that moment, a friend of mine, you guys might know Tim Palmer. Ever heard of Tim Palmer? He's a fantastic musician. I encourage you to listen to his music. It'll change your life. Tim and I were going to go drive to Granbury and do a speaking engagement over there. Ironically, we're going to talk to kids about the power of love. So I had to get my mind around that idea. But I ended up talking my wife into not leaving that day, and I was trying to talk things through, and I went to Granbury, and so I call Ryan Little John. I call Tim a Care Bear because he literally like does the Care Bear stare from his whole heart onto you, and it just like makes you feel like you're fully alive and like you're fully loved, and even when you're at your worst point in time. And I was at my worst point in time, absolute worst point in time. But the entire drive, 3.5 hours to Granbury, even though he's sitting next to me, like the Care Bear stare was just blowing me away. And I didn't feel like this was the end. So I got back, tried to work things through, tried to fight for the relationship. It didn't work. She still left. But I had a decision to make for myself. Because in the back of my head, in the midst of all this stuff, while I'm wrestling with the just end it because you're not worthy, there's this other voice that's going on in my head. And maybe it was kind of like that voice that told me, how long are you going to run, dude? Because this voice kept saying something that my coach used to say all the time. Be solid, dude. Be solid. Be solid. Be solid. Now, I knew what that meant in boxing. That meant that you can take a shot, meaning a punch, or a series of them, and it might knock you backwards, but it doesn't knock you down, and it certainly doesn't knock you out because you're grounded, and because you know who you are, and because you know your stance, and you've got the pieces together to make things work. But also that you have the confidence in yourself to keep going no matter what comes at you. And I could hear that voice in my head, the voice of my coach, saying, be solid. But essentially he was saying, dude, you are worth fighting for. But I had to choose that for myself. So what happened was, in the midst of my worst personal hell, and if you guys have experienced heartbreak, you know that heartbreak is personal hell. It's the worst pain in the entire universe, and you are in the middle of it, and you don't necessarily know what to do. But I decided that what if this is the end of that life, and this is the end of that version of me, because I was tired of being afraid of everything. and I was tired of running from things that scared me. And yeah, I learned how to box, but boxing just gave me a little bit more confidence and showed me that maybe like there's some kind of athlete in this skinny little dude's body. But most importantly, maybe there's a really big heart in here that needs to live a more full life. And so in that series of moments, after everything ended, I'm in my house by myself with a couple cats I didn't really understand at all. I love the cats. I decided that I was going to make some different decisions about who I wanted to be, and that I was going to use this heartbreaking, gut-wrenching, agonizing period to become something different. And so I've written a book. Ironically, it's called Be Solid: How to Go Through Hell and Come Out Whole. What I realized was I was a broken person, and I didn't need somebody else to save me. I needed to save myself, and I needed to decide, am I worth fighting for? And if so, am I going to do it? Am I going to do whatever it takes to fight for the person that I want to be? And am I going to lean into the pain and burn off all the crap that needs to go? The insecurities, the fears, the doubts, the worries, the feelings of not being good enough. Am I gonna allow somebody else to validate me in order for me to believe that there's something in here that's worthy? Or am I gonna make that decision for myself? And when I realized that the people that I valued the most, that I thought were the strongest, they didn't give a crap what anybody thought of them. It didn't matter. They knew who they were. And the whole world could hate them, and they'd still have a smile on their face. I was like, I think I want to be like that person. Because how do you have a bad day if your sense of self and your sense of identity isn't based on what anybody else thinks about you? You can approach an absolute stranger with love in your heart and a big giant smile on your face and give them all the love that you have, and it doesn't matter whether or not they reciprocate it or not, you're still you. That's the person I wanted to be. I want to be able to stand in front of a group of strangers, kind of like I am right now, and share my story and do so without any fear whatsoever. And hopefully at the same time be able to impart something that is of meaning and value to you, so that you have not the motivation, because motivation is fleeting, kind of like, I don't know, scrolling through your Facebook feed. Oh, that's a cool saying, click. Oh, that's a cool saying, click. Oh, I don't like that one. Oh, what a cute, no, I don't want to do that. Hopefully what I can give you here in this moment is something that will stick with you for longer than the scroll through your social media feed. But it'll be a reminder to you that not only are you worth fighting for, but in the midst of what might be your worst situation and your worst fear and your worst pain come to life, that there's something in there that can purify you and make you into a more whole person. Because the reality of the situation is you are a whole person, you just have to choose to be. What was inside of me that needed to be burned off was stuff that I had to address and face and do the proactive, what I call the hard heart work of taking it all out of here, looking at it for what it is and saying, I don't want this anymore, and letting it go. Now, sometimes those insecurities and those fears like to try to jump back on you, like leeches typically try to do, and you have to acknowledge them for what they are, shut them off, and keep going. So, what that's required for me is I surround myself with really awesome people. The people that you surround yourself with are going to determine how far you go with success, how far you go with life, and how far you go with your own personal happiness. So I encourage you guys not to like cut out friendships, but evaluate the characteristics of the people that you spend time with. And if you're not around people that are pretty consistently optimistic, upbeat, encouraging, and loving, try to find more people that are like that. It'll make your life better. It's easier for you to be vulnerable and easier for you to be real when you're around people who are also willing to be vulnerable and real with you. Second thing that I started doing, and I do this on a consistent basis, what do you tell yourself about who you are? Question, what do you tell yourself about who you are? Do you ever have thoughts that are, I'm not good enough to do this. I can't blah, blah, blah. I can't do this. I hope that somebody else will do this for me because I can't do this and I don't know how to do this and blah, blah, blah. You guys have those thoughts? Okay. What do you do when you have those thoughts? Do you listen to them? Do you accept them as truth? Do you think that it's because it's in your head that it must be God talking to you? I hope not if they're negative thoughts. There's different teachings on this stuff, and I'm not going to get into all that stuff. I think that that's the voice of self-doubt, and the voice of self-doubt is wrong, inherently. Because inherently, you are a piece of God, you came from God, and God doesn't screw up. So, a voice that says you're not good enough, you can't do this, you're unable to do that, you don't have the skills that it takes, you're not good enough to blah, 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 or these people aren't going to like you because of blah, 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 screw that, it's wrong. The practice that I've adopted, and it's going to sound cheesy, it's going to sound weird, but I don't care. I tell myself who I am every day. Now, what I tell myself I am is who I want to be. I am love. I am peace. I am joy. I am happy. I am successful. I am strong. I am solid. I am giving. I am kind. I am gracious. I am forgiving. Now, these are all characteristics that are not like, I'm good at baseball. I'm awesome at guitar. I'm the best artist in my class. You can say all those things if you want to, and that's awesome. But who is it that you want to be in terms of your character qualities? And the more that you plant that inside here, I have a thing called growth farming, which is a belief I have. It's my brand. It's also the tattoo on my arm. I believe that what you plant in your heart is what your life is going to produce, so you better be planting awesome stuff in there. For me, I plant love inside my heart every single day because that's what I want my life to produce. I want to be known as somebody that lives a life of love, not a life of fear. So between those two things, planting good things in your heart every single day and surrounding yourself with good people, you can overcome any obstacle that life will throw at you. And it's going to throw stuff at you if it hasn't already. Just warning. But here's the thing. One of the cool things about the process of growth is it's kind of like a video game in that you're at level 1 or 2. As you go through difficulty and you overcome difficult things, now you've leveled up and now you're able to handle more stuff. You become a better leader. You become a better communicator. You become somebody that is more inspirational. You become somebody that is easier to follow and easier to hang out with. Okay, now that's a lot of good motivational talk, which hopefully that did something for you. The big thing I wanted to really just kind of convey to you is, in my worst period of time, I created my best work because I didn't run away from the pain. And as artists, graphic artists, no doubt, you guys are, from the very beginning when I asked you, you take emotion and you translate that into something that conveys emotion, right? My encouragement to you is that when you experience things that are not pleasant, use that emotion to your benefit, because there's power in that emotion. Something that feels uncomfortable, that feels difficult, you can utilize that feeling to create something that is more magnificent, possibly, than if you were to try to create something when you just felt all good and it's all happy and I'm gonna paint this photo. But listen, look, so there's a poster back there, Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan has written, I don't know, what's the guy, 80-something years old? He's written some of the most amazing songs in the history of recorded music. But a lot of those songs are incredibly painful. And he's told some stories about people that have lived incredibly painful stories and incredibly painful lives. And a lot of that stuff, especially his really sad love songs, personal experience. What could he have done in the midst of his worst pain? Put his pen down and cried and let that be it. But instead, he leaned into the pain and let that emotion that was so heavy inside of him become something that could not only help him get on the other side of his pain, but help other people be able to do the same thing too. So it's taking that emotion, and you guys as artists, taking that emotion and using that emotion as fire, as like rocket fuel, to launch you into a different kind of artistry. Cool? Okay, that's all I got.